Hi there, it's Matt Alder, and welcome to this week's episode of the Alder Hour, your favorite way to end your working day. I'm Matt Alder, I host Recruiting Future, and also I host the Alder Hour. This show is part of the Purple Acorn Network. Head over to purpleacornnetwork.com after the show if you want to learn more. You can also follow Purple Acorn on LinkedIn. This episode is available as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I'm back. I've been away for 2 weeks, so it's amazing to be back. They've changed the intro music while I've been gone. So I'd like to bring my amazing two co-hosts up to the stage to find out what else happened while I was away. Hi, Rhona. Hi, Jocelyn. How are you both doing?
Hey, Matt.
Hi,
Doing
good.
good.
Excellent. So, Rhona, what have you been up to? What did I miss? What's been going on?
We went to Sherm. We had an amazing show there. You missed our segments that we did there. We both did something different for our segments while at Sherm.
Wow.
And then what else? I wasn't here last week because I had no voice after Sherm. I had so much fun.
Wow. Jocelyn, what have you been up to? What's been going on?
Well, I missed you very much, Matt, but I hope
Thank
you
you.
had good time off.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, being at Sherm was awesome. There were a lot of really amazing people we were able to speak with, including on the Alder Hour. So that was just an incredible experience, and I learned a ton. So I'm sure the audience did as well. Uh, So yeah, I mean, we did get some creative leeway, as Rona mentioned, but now that you're back, we're sticking to the rules, Matt.
You make it sound like I make up the rules, which is really not, which is really not true at all. Yeah, so I was on holiday. I was in Spain, which was amazing. Had a week and a half on the beach, and then came back last week and went straight to Wreckfest UK. And I just want to big shout out and congratulations to Jamie Leonard and his Wreckfest team. He was on the show a few weeks ago because they kind of smashed it out of the Nebworth Park again. So 5,000 people, some fantastic content, really hot day. I think this is Wreckfest number 13 in the UK, and it's never rained on Wreckfest ever, or it kind of did a little bit once, which is amazing. So I don't know what kind of deal that he's done with the weather gods, but it seems to work. But huge congratulations to him, and I know they've got Nashville coming up in a few weeks. So anyway, without further ado, let's get on with the show. We've got some. Well, first of all, we should find out what we're actually talking about. This is me trying to remember how this show works. So, Jocelyn, what are you talking about this evening?
Yeah, we're going to talk about ageism in job posts and within the recruitment process in general. So there was a post about a job that specifically put, if you are over 30, don't apply for the job. And so we're just going to talk a little bit about why you shouldn't be doing that.
Well, absolutely. And Rhona?
We're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is forced pay transparency. When sometimes companies don't get to choose if their pay is shared publicly or not. And I love that for them.
Fantastic. And we've got a great guest coming up as well. So without further ado, let's get on to our first little segment, which is Points and Pints. There we are. Right. So, if you've not watched the show before, in this particular section, we bring our beverage of choice for the week, and we drink it, and we talk about some things that we've spotted in the news. So, I might have had this one before, but I'm not sure. This week, I have Beavertown Laser Crush alcohol-free IPA, which I've had before, which is amazing. So it's a London brewery. Rhona, what are you drinking this week?
I'm still on my Trader Joe's tour, so I'm doing the sparkling watermelon juice, which everyone says is amazing, and I can't wait to try it.
Fantastic. Did you buy kind of a job lot from there or something?
I just go there many times a week, and there's always something new, and there's always something new on TikTok telling me about the new stuff at Trader Joe's, which is why I end up going there. So that's how I choose my drinks.
Of course, the power of TikTok. Jocelyn, did TikTok help you choose your drink this week?
I actually don't think I've ever even used TikTok before. So, no, it's banned in our household. I have a 16-year-old who doesn't like that band very much. No, I actually have this Fresca mixed. It is a vodka, orange citrus, only 100 calories per can. So
Oh,
that's
wow. Is
what I'm
that is
going
that is that alcoholic vodka? Um,
Yes, it
oh,
is.
cool.
So
Okay. 'Cause, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I'm still on my non-alcoholic beer thing. Cool. Well, let's just have a quick try, see what we think. Gonna pour my Laser Crush in here. I've had this before, so I know I like it. It's really good. It's a great summer drink. If you can get it in your country, I suggest you try it. How's the Trader Joe's special?
This is amazing. And I love making my own watermelon juice, but that will be changing.
Cool. And the vodka and stuff?
it tastes like orange Fanta. So if you like that, go
There
for the
you go.
fresh mixed.
There you go. Awesome. Right. Now we've done that, let's look at our first article. So bring it up on the screen here. The hidden costs of RTO, why forcing choice is detrimental to your business. So this article looks at some research done by Lightcast. There's some other research that it mentions as well. But basically, it's kind of looking at this whole trend of forcing people to return to the office, and really kind of highlighting the negatives of it. So some of the things that it kind of brings up. First and foremost is a trust issue, because in many cases these are companies that said we're going to work remotely forever, or we're never going to bring you back to the office, and that's obviously changed. There's also a lot of stuff in here about employee retention, and the fact that very often when people force return to the office on people, high performing employees are the first to leave. So the cost of replacing them, and also the lack of flexibility. So people who have like carer commitments or disabilities, or reasons why it's actually easier for them to work away from the office. It's kind of destroying that sort of aspect of it for them. So nothing new here. From my perspective, I'm still amazed that companies are. I mean, when was the pandemic? Was that 5 years ago? That companies are still haven't quite decided where their people should work, and surely there's kind of like several years of data kind of on this. To me though, I think there is a sort of a bigger picture to this, because I think you can look at the reasons that companies give for doing this, and they'll bang on about culture and training and learning and being together and all this kind of stuff. There's the real reasons that kind of sit behind it. They've spent a lot of money on an office that they want to fill, aspects of controlling management, all of those kind of things. But I think fundamentally the reason that we still seem to be having this debate is because of the real sort of underlying mental model about work. So this whole idea that, if you're a knowledge worker, you go to an office 5 days a week from 9 to 5, which is never true anyway. It was always like 8 till 7 or something like that. That's what work is. And I think that perhaps this debate kind of still runs and happens because it takes a long time to change our mental model about how work works. And I think people are maybe, capitalizing on that, or that might be some of the things driving it. But, I'm amazed that this is still something that's an issue that's being debated, that we're discussing. And, from my perspective, I think companies should be really looking into where are people the most productive for the job that they do. And I've never seen like data or research that robustly kind of supports some of these RTO mandates. So it's an interesting one. Jocelyn, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, I mean, you covered quite a bit of it. There are some concerns around this, especially when you think about retention and morale, and when there's morale issues, productivity. But this idea of making you return to work, I think, creates this trust issue with the workforce, where they say, "Well, we've been doing this really well for the last 5 years. What's happened now that's made you think we need to come into the office?" Um, and so I think that it becomes a really difficult topic, because you're right. These companies do have long-term leases for office space that they're not able to fill because people aren't coming into the office. But then again, what you really need to do as a strategic leader in an organization is take a look at the data. what data exists that either supports a return to office or does not support that and supports more of like a flexible or a fully remote experience for employees. So, when you look at that data, you want to take a look at well, first your retention and how much that costs, right? But actual like operational metrics as well and overall company objectives. So it has your revenue increased, has your profit margin increased. When you're looking at a certain cost savings that increase your EBITDA, like all of that is really, really critical in making this decision, because you know what? If it all dropped after COVID because everybody was working remotely, then I think that's a really great data point to use to
Yeah.
say to employees, hey, this is why we're having people come in. But I think often employers don't have that tangible reason for employees to come back into the office. And that's what's creating a lot of strife.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with that. It always seems to be opinion, or we think this, or all that kind of stuff. And as you say, we've got 5 years worth of data on this. So if it was that important and that critical, where's the proof? And then that kind of helps that conversation along. Rhona, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of you. And I know you guys know, and people who have listened in before know, I've been team remote way before it was even popular. I've been working remotely since 2016, 2017, like fully remote. I think that there's a lot of definitely the trust, like Jocelyn was saying, if we've been doing this for 5 years and you're telling me, an adult, you don't actually have any proof other than you just think the vibes are off and you want us to come to the office. Um, what about what's been happening for these past 5 years and how I've been more productive? I also think we're forgetting who this impacts. This impacts, and the article said it impacts women a lot,
Mm.
that are caretakers, and there's another part of the population that we don't talk about much, but I like to bring awareness to this. There's people like me who live in states like Oklahoma where there isn't that much opportunity for work outside of the 2 to 3 industries that you get jobs with here. And I happen to be someone who does not want to work in the oil and gas industry or does not want to do the specific things that are done here. When you have companies that have remote work, you then have the opportunity to work at these places that you would never have, if you're only limited to geographical, or you're limited by your geography. And also on the flip side, for companies, you're missing out on great talent that just literally happens to live somewhere other than close to your office.
Yeah, no, 1,000,000%. That whole kind of potential global talent pool or nationwide talent pool is just such a big thing. So I think, yeah, I think in conclusion, if these kind of return to office mandates turned up with robust data backing up why, then I'm sure we wouldn't have this debate, but they never seem to. And also, I think that there is also, there's kind of a thing about, well, where does reality really sit? Because whenever a big company does this, it gets a disproportionate amount of media coverage. But anecdotally, I'm hearing from people who are working in a hybrid way that companies are kind of upping the number of days that they have to be in the office. They've gone from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. So it's definitely a thing. Please bring us some data and show us why. I think that's all we can say about it. I had no concept that we'd still be talking about this 5 years later, but we are. Okay, cool. Let's bring the next one up, and it's one of our favorite topics: CEOs talking about AI. So, this one is Mark Benioff from Salesforce, and I actually spotted this on holiday. You see, I've got a very, I'm never off when I'm on holiday. So AI is doing up to 50% of our work at Salesforce. Now, kind of a few sort of observations about this. It's kind of interestingly, the article refers to our favorites Klarna in terms of, they've done this and laid all these people off because of AI. So I think it's kind of difficult sometimes that there's this sort of sensationalism around these kind of stories in the media, and it can be quite difficult to really kind of ascertain, is this happening? Is AI genuinely doing 50% of their work? Is it a play to please their shareholders? And I just wish we had a little bit more transparency and nuance about this discussion when it comes to AI, because it's always like AI is good, AI is bad, AI is killing jobs, AI isn't killing jobs. And I think it's just something that's so important really to the future of humans that we should be having kind of more nuanced discussions about it. So that's kind of my first point. I think the second point is, I this is Salesforce. I believe it. AI is their business model. They have their platform, Agentforce, which is deploying AI agents into their client's business using all their data on Salesforce and things like that. So it kind of makes perfect sense that they would want to do this because it's what they want their clients to do, so they can sell more of their software and their solutions. And again, I think at a kind of a macro level, they're just really big implications around this. There's been a lot of headlines in the UK this week about the loss of entry-level jobs because of AI and companies not employing as many school leavers and graduates as before. And it just seems like this is such a fundamental issue in the world of work. And I'm not hearing governments talk about it. All we have is these very sensationalist headlines, often with very inaccurate information in them. So I think it's just kind of, really important that we have a proper discussion about this at very least. And I think again the sort of implications for HR and talent acquisition and recruiting in terms of what happens are huge here. And interestingly, earlier today, actually, I recorded a podcast interview with the chief people officer at Zapier, who are obviously an AI automation company. And they've been at this for 3 years in terms of getting AI into their businesses and their workflows. And it was a fascinating conversation about how they've done that. And there we go, cutting me off in mid-flow there, in terms of how they've done that. So, it's a really interesting topic, but huge implications. And I'm just fed up with the sensationalist headlines, and I want a little bit more nuance to the discussion. Rhona, what do you think on this one?
I mean, I 100% agree with you. I think that there needs to be more transparency. I think companies are using this. When I read this, obviously, like you said, I took this with a grain of salt because Salesforce is definitely wanting to push their agent thing, right? So it's like, is everyone doing this, or is this like Salesforce wanting it to become a thing? But I do think a lot of people are doing it. I think a lot of companies and executives are looking at it as a way to like reduce headcount, which is very, very unfortunate. And I think governments really need to start stepping in, and there needs to be like some sort of regulation. Like, are they going to say only 30% of your company of your work can be done with AI? You need to guarantee jobs for X amount of people. Something like that needs to happen, because it's really right now all an experiment that we're all part of. But unfortunately, like the livelihood of people is being impacted. I think a lot of that has to we really need our governments, and this is collectively everywhere, to step in and have some regulation. Otherwise, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point, and I think that what that looks like is always a kind of a really difficult thing to kind of predict. But I think that even at a fundamental basis about going back to people leaving college or school, or being being displaced from the jobs that they've got, just the way that we talk about careers and skills and how people can get in the workforce or get back in the workforce is just very much out of date. And I think even addressing that conversation, giving people the right information, is an important part of it. Jocelyn, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I like same thing. I thought that the numbers were very inflated. I think that the AI claim is a bit overstated and likely is referencing engineering efficiencies gained, but not really taking a look at the full company-wide task automation aspect. So that part to me was, I think something more of like a marketing spin where they're elevating these expectations without necessarily delivering proportional organizational impact. And they talked in this article about how Salesforce, even though they've kind of replaced a lot of this work with AI, they haven't done any layoffs, but they've actually done a hiring freeze in some of their departments, and so the reduced
Exactly.
hiring is still creating job displacement. You can use whatever words you want, but that's the honest truth behind it. The other thing too is that these AI tools still require a lot of oversight. So the article says that Salesforce reports that there's a 93% accuracy, and so there are potentially a lot of errors that could occur to critical functions. And I think that that's like a white space area that hasn't necessarily been really broken into by very many people yet. And it can't be 93%. Like I think as an employment and labor law software, we can't be 93% accurate. We have to be 100% accurate.
Yeah, I'm 93% accurate flying this plane, or whatever critical thing. 93% accurate in doing this critical operation on someone. It's like, yeah, exactly. It's not good.
Yeah, I'd say the only other thing, and I disagree with you, Rhona, a little bit on the government getting involved. I think that there are certainly some areas where they should get involved, like, for example, laws around AI ethics. But it's a really hard pill for me personally to swallow, to have governments come in and say, oh, you need to maintain this number of employees or percentage of your workforce, or something like that. I understand the intention behind all of it, and just that is. I think that there's something there. It's just a matter of figuring out what's going to work for businesses in the economy, what's going to work for people first and foremost, because they're the backbones behind the economy, of course. Without the government getting too intrusive in the way businesses operate.
Yeah, definitely not advocating for the government to be too intrusive. But I do think if there's any institution or anyone who should be on the side or advocating for the humans that are losing their jobs, it should be the government. We can't really leave it up to each company doing what they feel is best, because, I mean, their interests are not the common good.
Yeah, I think it's just even a case of having these conversations actually happening in terms of the thing is the key here. Thank you very much for your thoughts on that. I'm sure it's a topic that we'll come back to week in, week out as things develop. But for now, it's a bit of a situation, so we need to go to the situation room.
All right, so the situation today, it is a post on Reddit, actually, and these posts can be really interesting when you hear about the different experiences people have. This post specifically was about a job posting that somebody found that specifically said in the content of the job posting that you shouldn't apply if you are essentially over 30 years old. There wasn't enough detail in this post to understand perhaps why this company would say something like that. But nonetheless, it opens up a really great conversation around ageism in the recruitment process. So there are some really interesting tools out there today that can help analyze your job postings to minimize any type of discriminatory language you might have. But just kind of as a heads up for HR and recruiting professionals out there, sometimes there are words that you might use that you don't think are discriminatory in any way, but in fact are. So there are some phrases that exclude older candidates, like using the word digital native, which might imply that a person must have grown up with technology, or you have to be really careful about this one. You shouldn't put 1 to 3 years of experience, for example, only because it often is targeted more towards somebody younger. So if you're requiring 1 year of experience, maybe putting 1+ or something like that. Recent college graduate, especially when it's unless, well, I guess I'd say, like, especially if not tied to internship or training programs, that's a really big issue as well. The words high energy, fast paced culture, culture fit, often a dog whistle for young. And I think overqualified, that's a label that disproportionately applies to older applicants. So something you have to be really careful with as well. Yeah. I have a few more things to add, but Matt, I'm not sure if you want to come on stage here and give your initial thoughts to it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I kind of I'd written down energetic as a word you kind of see misused quite a lot. Yeah, I think it's I mean, it kind of was an interesting post. It probably looked a little bit fake, but I have seen similar things, put out there that are that explicit about it. But
Mhm.
let's face it, ageism is a massive issue, and I think sometimes we talk about conscious bias. Sorry, sometimes we talk about subconscious bias. I think that in a lot of cases we're talking about conscious bias here. People just not wanting to employ older people, and I don't know whether it's because I've got older now, but I just find it incredible because it's something that um, is going to affect everyone basically in some way, shape, or form. So it's kind of I just don't really get why companies still do this. Why do you think ageism is such a problem?
Well, something that's really sad is that ageism is really the most commonly reported form of employment discrimination, but it's also the least litigated because it's hard to prove. And I think that sometimes people can be a bit short sighted because more often than not, older workers are going to have deeper expertise, they require less hand holding. They offer strong mentorship to their younger teammates, and they have a higher job stability. And data really shows that older hires will stay longer. So, age bias isn't just hurting the individuals, it is, in fact, hurting the company, team performance, and diversity of thought across an organization as well. So I do think that some of it is simple oversight, to be quite
Mm,
frank, Matt. But
right.
what people really need to consider are the consequences. There are some serious legal risks over companies getting sued. In fact, I remember Facebook getting sued for some type of targeted job ads that excluded people over 40. I don't remember the details behind it, but there's a lot of money going around when it comes to these lawsuits. There's talent loss, obviously. So when there's age discrimination in your job post or during the recruitment process, that shrinks your talent pool. So as people live and work longer, that bias becomes even more self-defeating. And then, something that organizations really need to think about is reputation damage. So discrimination, even if it is subtle, can harm employer branding and trust. So, in a tight labor market, really alienating these experienced workers, it isn't just unethical, but I also think it's a really bad strategy too.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that I suppose another couple of things to add. I mean, I think that thing with the, aging workforces and things like that. I mean, if you look at the demographics of this, the US and Europe in particular, have aging workforces. There won't be enough younger people coming through to maintain the workforces that we have, even if they do shrink because of AI or all that kind of stuff. And again, it just seems even more inexplicable that we're seeing, ageism from that perspective when actually, the kind of trend as we move forward will be to try and persuade people to work for longer. I think the other thing that is actually probably indirectly discriminatory, particularly when it comes to sort of hiring, is how difficult it is to switch industries or switch roles or express your transferable skills. And, many recruiting processes seem to be kind of stacked against it. It's like, no, we want someone who's worked in this precise industry, all of those kind of things. And if you're an older worker, then you will have got more transferable, skills and interesting experiences that you could bring to a completely different area, and really help that company in terms of thinking differently. But again, it's just very difficult to do that at the moment, isn't it?
It is. I mean, there are some companies that have started like returnship programs. So they're kind of like internships, but obviously for professionals re-entering the workforce or maybe switching from one trade or industry to another. It can help undo the damage of past age bias, but you do also want to be careful because even though the ADEA protects people over 40 in the workplace, 40 and over in the workplace, there are a lot of states that have passed their own laws that don't have a specific age. I think this is the same maybe in the UK, Matt. There isn't a specific age that would be considered discriminated against. So it could be 18 years old, it could be 28 years old, or it could be 48, doesn't matter. So you do want to be really careful.
Yeah, because it kind of works. It does work at both ends as well. It's like, here we're specifically talking about, older workers, but there's lots of discrimination against younger workers, younger workers as well. So, yeah, it's a problem across the board. And I hope that by keeping talking about it, we'll kind of we'll get better as we move forward. So, Jocelyn, thank you very much for sharing that with us. It's time to talk to our guest. Hey, Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm having a wonderful day here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm jealous of you that you spent an excellent, awesome, hot afternoon with Jamie and the crew at Wreckfest. I'm getting that jealousy out of the way. I want you to feel those vibes immediately.
Oh, it was good. It was good. It was it was a big day. There was lots going on, lots of great content, lots of great conversations, and to me, it was just brilliant to see the talent acquisition industry assemble, in the middle of kind of tough times and disruption and all of that kind of stuff. So it was kind of a real heartening, positive day, and I'm sure the US version will be the same. Before we go any further, could you introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do for people who may not have come across you before and your work?
Please let me reintroduce myself. My name is Brian Fink. I am the founder, managing partner of the Rework Group. We focus on executive search for the artificial intelligence industries, primarily health tech, fintech, and insurtech. That's where we go. That's what we do. Prior to that, I was at this company called McAfee. Before that, I was at this little social media company called Twitter. And somewhere in the back, I was at AWS and at Apple. I enjoy building companies that scale. I enjoy taking people from better to best. I live in Atlanta, Georgia with my wife, who I think is listening, so I will watch my mouth, and my daughter, who is listening, so I will watch my mannerisms. That's what I got, Matt. What's going on?
Fantastic. Well, it's brilliant to have you. Brilliant to have you on the show. And I know you've been brilliant to have you on the show. And I know you've been sort of listening backstage at some of the conversations that we've been having. Obviously, as you say, you've worked for some really kind of well-known tech companies and been in this space for a long time. What is happening at the moment? What is going on with AI and recruiting and technology? I mean, how do you see the world at the moment?
So I see that the world is kind of burning a lot of brush right now. Okay. That is senior recruiters, that is junior recruiters, that's everybody in recruiting operations, because there is the impetus to do more with less, right? And what I'm also seeing, though, is I'm seeing less adoption of AI as maybe the boogeyman would tell us exist, right? Is that coming from a large organization, enabling AI across the organization, it de facto goes to using Copilot or Copilot, GitHub Copilot, right? Because of the safety mechanisms that need to be there and the security apparatus that need to be put there, as opposed to enterprise adoption of a Chat GPT or Perplexity or Claude. or even a Manus, which I don't know that anybody's implementing Manus, but I'm happy to talk a little bit about it, maybe how I'm using it, and give some use cases around that. I also feel that what we're seeing right now, no exceptions to the rule, is that recruiting is in fact being disrupted because people are doing more with less. And I think that what we're doing is we're creating better problem solvers and better innovators. And apparently the AI on my Apple has decided to give a thumbs up.
I saw that. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I was like, what's going on with that?
Yeah.
I think that it does also provide something that we were going to talk about today. I think it provides a discomfort to individuals, especially when we said we were going to talk about psychological safety. I
Yeah.
think that there are a lot of people that are very curious about whether or not they can be a collaborator and an executor of strategy at scale because they're not sure how AI is going to disrupt them. So I'm here for the big conversation. I'm here to get into all things and to have some fun.
I think that's a really interesting one, actually, because it kind of reflects a podcast interview I was recording earlier in the day about, AI strategy, and just the kind of experimentation that has to go with it. And I think it's a big issue for people. I think that there is this kind of lack of psychological safety, which means that people are don't want to engage with it in case it's scary, and people don't want to say they don't know how it works because you can't say that, even though we don't know how this works, and it is about experimentation. It is about all those kind of things, isn't it?
We have no idea how it works, right? Like, even if you get Mike Wolford, who is one of the smartest people in technology, recruiting, and AI in the room, it's still a black box to us. And I think that that's one of the things that's holding us back from being that true collaborator and executor. But I also think that it's one of those things that's keeping us or positioning us to move forward in a more dynamic manner, right? When we think about an organization being fearless, it means that they have to dispel the boogeymen, right? That they have to get beyond the idea of fear itself, not to quote Roosevelt, but for us to be able to jump ahead of schedule, for us to see around corners. That's really where things are at, so that teams can feel safe to take those risks and to be vulnerable and consistently be high performers.
Mm.
And I think that fear is undermining all those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And what can we do about it as an industry, or what can employers do about it? What's the sort of solution to this, or what do you think is
So I'm gonna noodle on 4 variables. Wait, 4. I gave 5 there a minute ago. I think it goes to the 4 stages of psychological safety: inclusion, learning, contribution, and challenger safety, the ability to be able to move the ball in a new and interesting direction and to stretch those professional capabilities. If you look at the framework that was laid out by Timothy Clark in the 4 stages of psychological safety, you see that even for a leader who's not born with emotional intelligence, and let's face it, there are a lot of leaders that don't have emotional intelligence, you can really get into that nuance. And then I actually want to jump to another instance of psychological safety, right? Matt, do you have a favorite Pixar film?
Oh yeah, good question. I'm going to go for Inside Out.
Okay, I love that. I love Inside Out. I love Inside Out 2. Watch that with my daughter. The reason that I bring that up is that you have a individual in Ed Catmull. He wrote a book that was called Creativity Inc. And I think this speaks to what is going on with AI today, right? Is that he let animators challenge directors, criticize each other in daily scrap scenes without fear. I come back to that 4-letter word and say, that's how you get a Toy Story. That is how you get an Inside Out. And if we're removing that type of intellectual honesty from the process, then we are hampering the advances that individuals will make with AI. Whether it was like the conversation that you were having with Rhona about how Agent Force is being rolled out and is replacing 50% of the workforce as a use case at Salesforce, right? That's very scary, right? Like, who wants to buy into that future? Well, innovation lives and innovation dies based on that honesty.
Mm.
And maybe maybe it is smoke and mirrors, but maybe it's more than that. Maybe it's the honesty that we are really able to build a more fluid future where we've got that co-pilot, that robot that sits on our shoulder to help us with this agreement.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it also comes back to what I was saying earlier about things like careers advice. So, people entering the workforce, like really understanding the skills that they're going to need in the future, not kind of being sort of sold to by colleges to say, do this qualification and you're bound to get a job because things are changing. So I think this kind of honest conversation about
Matt, I got to
all of
call
this
you. I got to call you out on that, right? Like I know my
stuff.
daughter is listening, but
Yeah.
Maddie, Daddy's about to say the word bullshit. That's bullshit. For the past 15 years globally, entry-level work has been declining. Now, to tie it to AI may be an accelerant. COVID may have been an accelerant, but we are seeing a more highly educated workforce than ever before, and they're not able to get entry-level jobs. What is going on in the economy, not just the US economy or the EU's economy, but the global economy as a whole, that is diminishing the opportunity that exists for entry level jobs? Sorry, I didn't mean to say an 8-letter word. Okay.
You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome to.
Okay. I'm drinking my coffee. So, like you've got your non-alcoholic beer. I've got my coffee. I'm ready to go.
What I would say though is I didn't actually mean that.
Okay.
What I meant was, for whatever reason, careers are changing, and there are a lot of things going on in terms of economic forces, skills, all this kind of stuff, and I don't think that we are giving people the right advice about what a career looks like in the age that we're kind of going into. I think that's the point I was kind of making, and yeah, AI does contribute to that, but I think it's that more kind of the honesty about those kind of things.
Well, Matt, maybe AI does play a role in fulfilling that promise. I think about, my daughter who says that she wants to be a ballerina mom. Okay. So if she's watching a video, or I should say a camera is watching her and is tracing her movements, it can provide that one-on-one coaching through computer vision that only exists for people who are super wealthy to have access to that type of opportunity, right? And so when we talk about the opportunity that AI is creating, it's creating a real diversity, not something performative, not something in panels and rainbow logos. I want to be very specific that AI is really opening the aperture as to what is possible. We in HR, we're afraid of that aperture, right? Because I was having a conversation with Joshua Jones this week. Josh, I hope that you don't mind that I'm sharing our conversation. If you do, call me now. I'll stop. Okay, you didn't call me. So we were talking about the fact that we keep having these recruiting conversations and there's no lawyer in the room. There's not. Was there a lawyer at RecFest talking about the receipts that we've got to keep for? No, there's not. So I would argue that my advice is free. It's about as valuable as a trial with SaaS. You do not have to get headcount approval. You just have a willingness to listen up and to get started. That's the same willingness that you should have for somebody who's a legal authority that can tell you whether or not resumes are being rejected and how they're being rejected or how they're being scoped by AI.
Absolutely, and I'm violently agreeing with you all the way through with all of this. I think I think it comes back to what we're saying about having proper nuanced conversations and not sensationalizing everything and picking sides and all those kind of things. And I I have I know a number of lawyers actually who are struggling with this as well because it's very
let's get them on the show and have them debate this.
Very difficult to kind of know how things are going to turn out. A couple more things. I know that one of the things that you wanted to talk about was the death of
Matt. I will talk about whatever you want to talk about.
No, absolutely. No,
I'm here for you.
And I'm just really interested because it's kind of that seems to me to be quite a big topic that you don't see talked about very much. So what's going on with sourcing?
Oh, what's going on with sourcing? I thought you were going to ask another question. I think that sourcing is dying a very slow and painful death, and I think that it is dying a slow death because there are voices that are trying to suggest that sourcing is some kind of mystic art that is and it is highly romanticized. I think maybe I've been one of those people in the past, but I look at what I'm doing today, and I'm 10xing the sourcing activity that that I did 18 months ago, and I'm using tools like N8N. You can go and you can learn that. I'm using tools like Clay. I'm finding candidates at scale. I'm having agents go and find the candidates for me and serve me 15 to 30 profiles that honestly, after I do a little click here and there, I'm good to go. I'm not having to perform crazy Boolean logic anymore. I've already programmed that into my Google custom search engines. I've put that into my agents. You go out and pull down resumes that are attached to WordPress sites that are part of an NURL structure, right? I say magic. There are a lot of voices that are out there that are talking about all these esoteric things that you can do with sourcing. To which I would say, and if my friend Brandon Jeffs is listening, Brandon, you can call me and tell me to shut up now, is that where's the receipt? Did you make a hire from that crazy sourcing technique? Years ago, Ryan Leary and I were in a bar in San Francisco, and I was sourcing software developers. This is pre-COVID. I'm sourcing software developers on Instagram. And I send the message through, I find the candidate through Instagram. I send the message through Instagram. And lo and behold, up on my Apple Watch pops up a candidate who I sourced from Instagram who says, I'm interested in talking to you about software development. Footnote, that did not result in the hire. That didn't. Okay. It was a really good story. Ryan and I were having a good time in San Francisco. We were at a sports bar right near the San Francisco Giants. I don't know if the Giants won, but I know I lost that day.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point. It's an interesting point.
Right. I mean,
I want to keep talking to you forever. We'll have to have you back on the show, but we're kind of running out of time, unfortunately.
Oh, no. Okay, sorry. I was long-winded. I apologize.
No, my fault. I want you to spend at least the last minute telling us about your new podcast.
Oh, okay. So I've got a new podcast. It is called FinkedIn.
See what you've done there. Yep.
Yeah, see what I've done there. So what we're doing on LinkedIn is we're taking things up a little bit of a notch. Is that we're having a conversation, particularly with your heads of people and your CHRO types. We're moving into the conversation about what is shifting with talent today and how they can cultivate a better relationship with talent, right? Because so many times we hear from people who are somewhere in the middle or somewhere who are the loudest in the room. We want to get rid of the loudest in the room. It's about making others loud. It actually goes maybe to our theme of psychological safety, is that we want people to be courageous to share their stories and their data. We want to be the first to listen to that story without punishing somebody. We really want to go the distance. That's the damn job.
Fantastic. Brian, I look forward to talking to you again soon.
I cursed twice, just 2 times. The dose.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us. And it's time for Trending or Ending.
Thank you.
Hey everyone. So, what's more terrifying to some companies than a union drive? A spreadsheet. So last week, an HR pro posted their salary progression on Reddit. Role by role, year by year, they mentioned their title, industry, experience level, and even their location in the Bay Area. Then they asked the crowd, do you think I'm being underpaid? What happened next wasn't a pylon or a debate, it was a confessional. Nearly 200 people responded, but instead of just giving advice, they started sharing their own salaries, complete with job titles, industries, and how many years they've been in the field. And slowly, you could feel it happening. The original question flipped. It wasn't just, are you being underpaid? It became, wait, am I? People started doing the math, comparing notes, realizing they'd been sold on competitive pay without knowing what that actually meant. And that's when it hit me, right? This is what forced pay transparency looks like. It's not driven by legislation or HR policy. It's driven by Reddit, by LinkedIn, and by TikTok. And by people sharing spreadsheets and salary snapshots with total strangers and finding more clarity than they get from their own employers. Like in companies, they might not be on Reddit, but their pay decisions are. Those days of never speak about your salary with anyone are gone. They're long gone. And that's why this is trending, because transparency isn't something that employees are waiting for anymore. They're creating it post by post, thread by thread. And if your compensation philosophy can't really withstand that kind of scrutiny, then the problem isn't transparency, it's the pay. So, Matt, what do you think? Is public salary sharing the new norm, or is it a risky trend that companies will try to shut down?
I really hope so. I really hope it's the new norm because, I'm kind of I'm kind of massively for this. I suppose a couple of examples. I mean, the first thing to say is that the EU Pay Transparency Act is in law next year, which forces EU companies to to kind of do this. So I can't remember how many countries are in the EU, 50 something or other. So that's kind of that's a big shift. The UK doesn't have laws like that, but it does have laws where companies over a certain size need to disclose on pay equality in terms of what they're paying women and men. So, we kind of have a little bit of sort of legislation either kind of on its way or already here in Europe. So I think that's one thing. But yeah, it just kind of reminds me of a conversation that I had when I was in a job a very long time ago. I was working at a company that was very always kind of trading people off against each other. So it was kind of like, you go in to negotiate a pay rise, it'd be like, well, do you think you do as good a job as this person? Should you earn as much as this person? And I just remember kind of like one night in a bar or something, there were sort of three of us. And we just decided to share our salaries. And it just felt like a really uncomfortable thing to do. And actually, it turned out we all got paid the same, which wasn't what we've been led to believe. So that was why that was different. And I've known people leave spreadsheets on shared drives where the whole company's got to see their salary and all that kind of stuff. So, I think I just think it's ridiculous that this isn't kind of shared and discussed. I think if you pay someone more than someone else and you can't justify that, then why do you do that? And I think that it's just great to see. It's kind of great to see a trend like this, but it kind of goes against that whole mental model of work. We don't talk about our salaries and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm all for it.
Oh, I love it. I remember a few years ago I posted a video, and I always remember the hook of my videos. I don't remember the rest of the video, but the hook was, am I underpaid or is everyone online just lying? And I even had the opportunity to go and speak to the LinkedIn news team about this video because I was seeing it back then, and it's like I've always been someone who challenges what they've been told is how you do things. So when I first started working and people would tell me, well, you're not supposed to talk about your salary with your coworkers, I immediately was like, why? Who does this benefit? Because this only benefits the company. I've always been someone who shared their salary openly. When I was in management, even like HR would hate me, but everyone on my team knew how much they made. And I was always confident enough to tell other people, like, oh, I make this amount and so makes this amount, because people talk and they find out. And I was always very, very clearly being able to say, well, yeah, they make more because X, Y, and Z. And it's always like, oh, okay, so let's talk about how we get you to X, Y, and Z so that you can get that amount. Now, I know lots of people, lots of managers, lots of companies, it's not that way. It's really literally based on who negotiated better. And that's something that I've always hated. So I love this trend, and I'm team talk about your salary to anyone, everyone, as much as you can.
To kind of bring in a counterpoint, because if I just agree with you, then
It
that's
wouldn't be
not very
fun.
interesting to listen to, is it? I think that, I've seen companies that have very clear grading scales and, pay scales and things like that. But there are also companies out there that, for whatever reason, maybe the company has acquired other companies, or there's been mergers and there's the kind of things that there is a massive kind of discrepancy in pay. And it's not necessarily that organization's fault, and it's very difficult to fix. And I don't know if that's a justification for this, but I think it's there are complicating factors to this as well.
Is it difficult to fix? I remember the last place where I worked. I'm the type of recruiter that if I find you someone that is amazing, I'm going to move everything and talk to finance and do everything that has to be done to hire the person. And there were many, many times where at this company, and I loved it. This was happening even before I got there. I would say, as a recruiter, okay, this is the person. We got them. We're getting in at this salary. And the manager would immediately say, I have someone else with same skills at this salary. So we need to fight to get a raise for my current person in order to hire this person. And that's how it was done. So
Mm,
is it
mm.
difficult? No. Is it something that companies like to do? Absolutely not. But that particular company I worked at, that's how they operated for many, many years, even before I was there. That was just part of the plan. If you're going to hire someone for the same role, like people would get random raises that they didn't understand why, but it's like the market is dictating that this is what we pay for this role. So now you get a small bump in your salary because you're the same exact role.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's I think that's a good point. I also think that from a recruiting perspective as well, when companies deliberately pay people less than they were actually budgeting because they think they can get away with it. I mean, anything that kind of addresses that kind of behavior has got to be a good thing. But we are moving into this kind of whole new world. We've got new generations in the workforce who cannot see the logic in some of the ways that we've thought about work in the past. We've got platforms that do this, the ability to have close conversations with millions of strangers, changing times.
And there's entire websites dedicated to this. I come from the tech world, so there's levels.fyi who's been around forever where you can just go in and see what people are making. Not necessarily name, first and last name, but like role, company, years of experience. So it's like this information is out there. Thank God it's out there for everyone. And I encourage anyone who's on the job hunt. And what really surprised me about this Reddit thread that it was HR people talking about this because we don't talk about salary amongst ourselves, and it's really been the thing that's played against us because when you read through that thread and saw how many people were like, wait, I've been doing this and this and this, and I'm only been paid this. This is how we change things when we talk about our salaries.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think there's a massive equality thing here as well, which I say certainly the UK has got kind of is trying to address with legislation, but yeah, work is changing. Better get used to it.
It's definitely trending.
So yeah, that's definitely trending for me. Rhona, thank you so much for all your insights and bringing us that one. And yeah, we're at the end of the show again. So thank you very much for listening to us. There are great shows almost every day. There are great shows almost every day on the Purple Acorn Network. You've got the HR Morning Show, My First Job, From the Desk, From X to Z. If you want to find out more, go to the Purple Acorn LinkedIn page and you'll be able to see all of the shows there. If you want to kind of tap into my longer form interviews, take a listen to Recruiting Future. And also, this show is available as a podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. So come and find us, search for the Alder Hour, dig into the back catalogue and listen to some of the great conversations that we've had. Thank you to Rhona, thank you to Jocelyn, thank you to Brian, and also thank you to Alan, our producer, because we never say thank you to him. So I'm just going to say thank you to him. The Alder Hour will be back this time next Monday. I'm already looking forward to it. This is Matt Alder, clocking out.